So Michael Cohen's testimony has really rocked Donald Trump, but he's still acting really weird in the courtroom. Now it's being reported that apparently he is looking at pictures during the trial. Is it pictures of things to do with the trial? No, apparently he is looking at pictures of crowds, and they believe that it's crowds from his rallies. That's how fragile this guy's ego is. He's sitting there looking at pictures of people going, oh, they love me. And then outside the courtroom, he's talking about all these supposed supporters and protesters who are outside on his behalf, and it's just truly laughable. But my good buddy D Knight is here to take us through this further. And folks, if you haven't already, be sure to go over to his channel. It is Pardon the Insurrection Podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe. I tell you what, man, things are so crazy in Donald Trump's world that it's great having voices here on the channel that I can give the hot tag to and bring in to talk more about it. So, folks, you take a look at this next clip, and then D's going to take it away.
The Trump behavior as a defendant is the most absurd defendant behavior I've ever seen. First of all, there is the eye closing, which he now does about 10 minutes into the proceeding. And I think he's doing that to try to prove to us that he's actually not sleeping because it's only 9:40 a.m. But the eyes are closed for extended periods of time. The head starts to tilt. And then when he's not doing that, I actually saw him looking at photographs and I could see over his shoulder of what appeared to be crowds, possibly photographs of his rally this weekend, stuff completely unrelated to this case.
It is the first criminal trial of a former president in the history of the United States, and this guy can't stay awake for it. And when he is awake, he has to flip through a picture book like a 4-year-old. Like, what are we doing here? But this is your boy, D Knight, from the Pardon the Insurrection Podcast, coming to you on behalf of Tennessee Brando. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Otherwise, Kendrick Lamar is going to write a song about you and end your career. No, I'm kidding, but got to get him to 200,000 subscribers, and we're oh so close. I know you guys are listening, so just go ahead and hit that button for me. And as I was saying, we're in the midst of the criminal trial of the century, or at least the first of a number of criminal trials of the century, as far as Trump is concerned, given that some of them appear to be on backlog at the moment. But Michael Cohen, his former lawyer / fixer, has been testifying the last couple of days here, and he's been dropping bomb after bomb after bomb in court. I think he's done a successful job here of tying Trump to these payments to cover up his affair with former adult film star Stormy Daniels and keeping that information from becoming public before the 2016 election. Cohen's also done a fantastic job of tying Trump to the falsification of the business records, intending to disguise their true nature so that if anyone comes looking, no one will discover what those payments were actually for. I think given that Cohen's testimony here has been so effective, all he has to do is withstand whatever's left of the cross-examination, and regardless of whatever the defense puts forward over the next week or two, I believe Cohen's effectively put the nail in Trump's coffin in terms of making sure he is found guilty in this criminal trial. But, let's hear from Trump, how he thinks things are going in this trial in Manhattan. I wonder what he might have to say about his prospects here.
Step in, because what this judge is getting away with is disgraceful, including the fact that we have thousands of people, we have 100,000 people in New Jersey. They would like to show their support. It's like an armed camp outside. You can't get one person within 3 blocks of this courthouse. Greg Jarrett.
Well, he's clearly focused on the most important aspects of his criminal trial. That's right, the size of the crowd outside the courthouse. You may have noticed that there was quite a bit of exaggeration about the size of the crowd at his New Jersey rally over the course of this weekend. Could he have perhaps been over-exaggerating about the size of the crowd outside of the New York courtroom? Let's go take a look and see.
Stormy Daniels took the stand on Tuesday. We're expecting a huge crowd of Trump supporters.
Huge crowd.
There's one.
Well, do you want to count the dog? Do you want to count the dog?
If you count the dog, there's two. And then I see one other guy here. Is your dog a Trump supporter?
No.
No?
He's a dog.
Just a dog?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay,
two.
so
Officially
two.
just two.
Two.
Two Trump supporters here.
But that's how you get in and you find out the real information. You have
Yes.
to talk to the people on the ground.
Okay, so we have one Trump supporter. The dog does not count, as we said before. And then it looks like we have one other Trump supporter, but maybe some of the people are hidden here or something like that. Excuse me, sir. Sir, are you a Trump supporter? No? You're not a Trump
No.
supporter? Okay.
Okay. All right. So
we still have one.
That
So
not another Trump supporter, but here this could be a Trump supporter.
Are you a Trump supporter, sir?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. How many Trump supporters would you say are here today?
Two.
Two?
A whole two.
Officially two?
Two.
Well, maybe if he'd done more to win over the dog community, he could have had 3 supporters outside of the courthouse. But it's pretty clear law enforcement isn't doing anything to block access to the courthouse. There's no army of 10,000 Trump supporters trying to fight their way down there to show their solidarity with Trump as he faces this criminal trial. You know, much like some of these random polls, it appears as though his support only exists on paper, but not in real life. But let's hear from Trump about some of his defenses as it pertains to the charges that he's currently facing.
Greg Jarrett, we're not, I mean, you take a look at this statement, we're entering the 4th week, and there's still no evidence whatsoever connecting Trump with any criminal wrongdoing. A crime that's not charged, it's a crime that, in which prosecutors won't even tell the defendant what it is. I have no idea what they're even doing. We have records, and they talk about bookkeeping. The only thing down in the bookkeeping is that we call a legal expense a legal expense. We don't call it a construction expense. We don't say for concrete work. We don't say for electrical work. We paid a lawyer a legal expense. And we have a legal expense is a legal expense. It's marked down in the book, quote, legal expense. It's perfectly marked down. The other side doesn't know how to handle it, but they say, let's indict him anyway, because that's what Biden, this all comes from Biden in the White House, by the way.
It's still quite hilarious that they print off like a booklet of news articles for him to read outside of the courtroom in his own defense, as though he can't be trusted to speak about these things on his own without going totally off the rails. And also, like, referring to yourself in third person. It's just so extraordinarily strange. But Trump talks about these business records being described as legal fees. Well, I'm sorry, my guy, but paying a porn star to keep silent about your affair before an election, that ain't legal fees. Like a non-disclosure agreement, that's one totally separate financial transaction, and where, say, paying your lawyer legal fees associated with negotiating that NDA, that's a separate financial transaction, and you would describe them as such. So that is what Trump is on trial for. I don't know why he's pretending as though he doesn't understand the charges. I mean, again, maybe this is some kind of bid for ineffective assistance of counsel. No idea. But we'll see if he's willing to take the stand and present that defense in court, as it appears so far that he's not willing to do so. And unfortunately for Trump, a lawyer previously in his employ, who's currently experiencing his own legal issues at the moment, already previously disproved everything that Trump just said in an admission from 2018.
Having something to do with paying some Stormy Daniels woman $130,000, I mean, which is going to turn out to be perfectly legal. That money was not campaign money. Sorry, I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation. So
they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through the law firm, and the president repaid it.
As it turns out, it was not totally legal, and that's why Trump is in the middle of a criminal trial as we speak. But let's thank Rudy Giuliani for giving the game away way back in 2018 and telling us the truth that the payments were designed to reimburse Michael Cohen for paying off Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet, in total contradiction of everything that's stated on those business records. The crimes at hand. But let's hear from someone who worked within the Trump organization about these payments.
And yet they're going back to a $130,000 payment that a man made in his individual capacity that he booked on his personal ledger as a legal expense because it was paid to his longtime attorney. And he gets 34 felonies. Remember, Al Capone got 1 felony. My father gets 34.
Keep in mind there that Eric Trump is admitting that his father actually signed off on these payments. And also of note that they were marked as personal expenses. Gets a little difficult to swallow when you have the CFO, Alan Weisselberg's handwritten notes on the ledger, grossing up the payments to Michael Cohen to make sure that he's fully reimbursed for the money that he sent to Stormy Daniels after taxes, right? This defense is not going to fly well in court, but let's hear a little bit more from Eric Trump.
And then he comes on today and he basically says, well, look, Donald Trump was in control of this company. He signed off on everything. But does that concern you that he said your dad signs off on everything?
It's just, first of all, it's not true. My father was campaigning for 2 years at that point. And at the point that the point that the payment was actually made, he was sitting in Washington, D.C.
But those aren't, I mean, I'd say those aren't crimes anyway, even if he did say, okay.
Of course they're not. NDAs are completely legal.
I mean, that's the point.
Great. Admitting to your father committing crimes while in the White House. Genius move there. I can see why your dad left you in charge of his business while he was president. Well, left you in charge, quote unquote. And I wonder if he knows that Al Capone went to prison. What you guys think? But let's hear more from Trump as he was leaving the courthouse on Monday.
And it could have been brought 6 years ago, 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago. They bring it right in the middle of my presidential campaign. Bragg. He said we had no case. You know, if you go back, take a look at your earlier records. When he came into office, he turned it down and he was angry because of what took place. When he saw that they were going to use this scam, he was angry.
Trump complaining about the timing of these charges is always so ironic because Trump's very own Justice Department charged Michael Cohen for crimes relating to this activity. And then his handpicked Attorney General Bill Barr stepped in to make sure the investigation did not reach up to Trump. And in fact, also told the Manhattan District Attorney's Office that SDNY would handle it, even though he'd killed that investigation the same way Michael Cohen killed the Stormy Daniels story. But that's a matter for another time. Let's hear more from Trump as he returned to court for more of Michael Cohen's testimony on Tuesday.
Mr. Trump, did you set up a back channel to Michael Cohen after he was raided by the FBI?
Do you plan to testify, Mr. Trump?
Well, thank you very much. As you know, I'm under a gag order, so I can't really answer those very simple questions that you're asking. I'm under a gag order. Nobody's actually seen anything like it.
Oh, it's quite funny. He can spend all of this time talking about the trial on some days and some details about the trial, but on other days it's like, oh, he can't say a word because of the gag order, when the gag order is only preventing him from speaking about family members of the court staff, including the judge's daughter. He's also prevented from speaking publicly about witnesses at the trial or the jury. But that hasn't stopped him from leaning on his surrogates to go out and do his dirty work for him.
And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing that has been wrong here. Nothing that has been done poorly by President Trump. The only thing that's being done wrong is by this judge. His daughter's making money, raising money for Democrats.
Did I mention that Trump is barred from directing his surrogates to violate the gag order on his behalf? Judge Marchan is going to have to hold a hearing about that. But Trump himself was a little bit more discreet about where he directed his tax, doing his best to stay within the bounds of the gag order.
There's been no crime. Judge Janine Pirro, she talks here. She's very excited here. He's a fool. He's not an experienced judge. So I'll make that one a little short. I don't want to insult anybody.
No idea why he felt the need to print out an entire booklet just to tell us that Judge Box Devon from Fox News thinks Judge Marchan is a fool. But as I was saying earlier, on direct, Michael Cohen nailed his testimony, and I'm sure you're thinking, I wonder how well he did on cross-examination. Let's give you a little taste.
First thing Todd Blanche asked Michael Cohen is, you and I have never met. Michael Cohen said, correct, we've never met. Blanche then asked, you went on TikTok and called me, and I'm quoting here, you went on TikTok and called me a crying little shit.
Michael Cohen cooked him, and it only got funnier from there, to be honest. But if I were to try to sum up to the best of my abilities the way that Michael Cohen's testimony painted Trump in this endeavor, well, I'll let Rachel Maddow do the talking.
Now we know.
Contrary to Trump's denials that he had sex with Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen testified today that when he asked Donald Trump if anything had happened between him and Stormy Daniels, Trump bragged to Michael Cohen that, yeah, even though he was there at this golf event with Big Ben Roethlisberger, the women there, like Stormy Daniels, they wanted him more than they wanted Big Ben.
Actually kind of sums it up rather accurately, as the man who falls asleep in court and sharts himself in front of his lawyers and grabs women by the vagina, as horrifying as that is, and has an oddly shaped mushroom-like penis of smaller proportions, and who only lasts 2 minutes in bed, thinks that he's God's gift to women, and in fact thinks that he's more attractive than an NFL football player. Hey, did I mention that Ben Roethlisberger had his own issue with sexual assault? Kind of brings it on home. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you've yet to do so. Also, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you could, give me a follow on my personal podcast, Pardon the Insurrection, available everywhere podcasts are found, and also on YouTube.